go ahead and get started. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Clancy?
Here.
Councilmember Gray?
Present.
Councilmember Days?
Here.
Councilmember Dunaway?
Present.
Councilmember Fitch?
Here.
Councilmember Tracus? Councilmember Harder?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. The committee takes official notice of and admits into evidence all St. Louis County ordinances and resolutions. The purpose of the hearing this afternoon is for the County Council and the public to hear from the Department of Justice Services and from procurement regarding Bill number 109, 2020. The legislation is currently before the council on the perfection order of business and would authorize the county executive to execute a contract with Trinity Services Group for operation of food services and vocational programs at the Buzz Westfall Justice Center. Before we get into our presentation, I do want to note for everyone that some of the questions that might come up during this meeting are questions that would be should be in a closed session, and if it is recommended by this council, we can do a closed session next week. But I have asked our county counselor's office to let us know if we start to veer into topics that are actually closed records regarding some of the specifics of the RFP responses. So I want everyone to be aware of that and think about that as you ask questions and as we engage in our discussion. And if anything does come up that would be for a closed session, we will note that and consider doing a closed session at a later time. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Nathan Hem, who is the Accounting Manager for Justice Services. Mr. Hem, please share with us an overview of the bidding process.
Justice Services submitted to procurement the determination of procurement document, which is it's called a P101, and they recommended that we use requests for proposal, an RFP, for this contract. And since the RFP was over $100,000 was required, this was completed on February 4th, council meeting, item number 16. After that, the RFP publicly posted, and the proposals were due on February 26th. The Director of Justice Services, Mr. Bonasco, selected 4 county employees to be on the evaluation committee, myself, with experience in writing and evaluating. Ms. Tina Maloney, who also she's the Superintendent of Administration. She also has experience writing and evaluating RFPs. Major Charles McKnight, he's the major in the secure perimeter. His expertise is with staff dining and to also give inmate perspective. And we also had Ms. Valerie Nelson. She's with the Department of Public Health in the Corrections Medicine program here at the jail. We submitted our score sheet to procurement, and our score sheet was approved by Mr. John Tiggert, who was the procurement manager at the time. He's no longer with the county. So Ms. Keating stepped in to fill his role as the procurement person. We received 3 written proposals: Trinity, Summit, and Aramark. We allowed each vendor a 1-hour time to present their proposal and for questions and answers. And they also provided sample inmate and staff dining meals. All the committee members were present for each presentation, including Mr. John Tigert. So that was in March 2nd. The evaluation committee met. That included the 4 of us, plus Jen Keating via phone since Mr. Tiggert had left the county. We proceeded to score the proposals with the approved RFP evaluation score sheet. Each committee member scored it independently. The 4 committee members, Jen did not offer a score, just the 4 committee members. and we base it on 9 criteria. Technical qualifications, we weighted that 15%. Staff experience, we weighted 10%. MWBE certification is a 15% weight. Capability, capacity, and plan, 10%. The ability to meet project deadlines, 10%. Cost of food, 10%. Vocational program, 5%. Overall completeness and clarity of the proposal, 5%. The cost of food was the only criteria where we used a formula per the purchasing guidelines, and that formula is the lowest price proposal divided by the proposer's price times weight, which was 10% for this RFP. Trinity received the highest average score. The committee recommended Trinity to the Director of Justice Service. The Director recommended Trinity to Jennifer Keating, who is the Acting Procurement Director. This was on April 6th. The Director of Justice Services requested legislation to the County Executive after the recommendation to Ms. Keating. That was done shortly after that. And the last communication Justice Service had, we provided the council additional information regarding references and some issues raised by Mr. Sullivan and the public. That was on May 11th. Trinity's reference from Monroe County Sheriff has a jail population of about 1,400. They gave Trinity 8.6 out of 10. And then after the scoring, we received 2 additional references. Sometimes it takes a while for these references to come in, but when we scored them, each vendor had 1 reference from other jails. I'm sorry. We're meeting. Sorry. I'm sorry. The Galveston County Sheriff, with a population of 950, gave Trinity a 9.16 out of 10. Davidson County Sheriff, jail population 1250, gave Trinity 10 out of 10. And all 3 of these agencies currently are served by Trinity. Regarding the issues raised by Mr. Sullivan, several of these were Department of Corrections, which are much larger agencies serving many more inmates. Arizona Department of Correction serves 42,000. Michigan DOC houses about 41,000. Right now, our population is around 800 with a capacity of 1,200. So we feel that some of these issues raised don't really compare to us based on the size of our facility. And we also provided Trinity's responses to the council for some of these issues raised. We're asking for a 1-year contract, and we will be doing monitoring and inmate and staff surveys of meals frequently. All menus are planned by the contractor in accordance with the National Research Council and the ACA, American Correctional Association, recommended dietary allowance. The contractor's menus provide a variety of foods in adequate amounts to meet the recommended daily allowance and the ACA standards. A variety of flavors, textures, temperatures, and appearances and the contractor shall provide a method to monitor inmate preferences and to make adjustments. We have also recently reassigned a lieutenant who is over the kitchen officers and who is also monitoring quality now. We feel Trinity offered the best overall proposal, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Hem. I will open it up to the council for any discussion, comments, or questions.
Okay, well, I guess I'll start then. May I, Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilwoman Days.
Before, and I don't know who's going to answer, but all of you all are sitting there. So before the information came forward from one of our constituents. Had you looked into the prisons in Arizona or the Weber or any of the others that seem to have challenges with this particular company? Did you look into those allegations, or did you even look into those jails before that point in time?
Ms. Day, Raul Vanasco, how are you?
Good, thank you.
In my 32 years experience, I have been part of the prison system in the state of Florida, contract services also, and my experience, understanding when you deal, I'm familiar with the former director myself from Michigan. When you contract a big prison system, there's a lot of intricacies involved with pushback and workforce, labor forces. That was sort of part of it also. At the end of the day, you know, when we look at jail operations versus prison operations, totally two different sets of dynamics, because the prison population is such a different cost factor and delivery when you're talking the entire state, where local detention centers have a different scope of work. So this is not something that's uncommon in the industry. If you look at all providers who service state prison system on products versus county jails, you will always have a sort of slight difference on the delivery of services. When you're looking at 41 and the prison system I serve, I had 110,000 inmates, 125 prisons, totally different to one local jail. So that is something which, if you look at any provider, you're going to have often litigation. But we wanted to focus, my team focused on other comparable detention center jails with our population. And that was the most important factor, to see what was going to be our service providers' response to our needs. And understanding going into it, the best approach is doing a one-year contract and putting the lieutenant, the investment was made because we've had some challenges, and it was important to put the lieutenant in place now to sort of monitor the services we're receiving now. And it's going to continue moving forward.
Was the Weber not Arizona, where was Weber jail? I think that was in Utah, I believe, which was I believe that was a county jail. Is that correct?
Should be, yes. We're verifying it right now. Should be right.
Okay. And I believe there was a news report there. So my point is, and my question is, did you have did anyone look into any of these issues? Did you determine the quality of food for any other facility, be it large or small, for this contract and the trinity of people that were providing that?
I can answer, Councilwoman, about the jail in Utah. We talked to Trinity, and they did fire a senior manager at that facility. They said there were temperature issues, and I'm just going to read, there were no maggots were ever found. That was an allegation, but it wasn't true. And they did fire a manager there.
So did you contact Weber, or did you contact Trinity to see what they said about Weber?
We contacted Trinity to see what they said about Weber. This was after we had scored everything, after we had recommended the proposal.
I guess I see an issue with that. Of course, if Trinity is trying to get the contract, they're not going to really say, well, contact Weber and everything was okay and we didn't find that. And so I'm a little challenged to find out, if you're asking the company that's getting the contract to evaluate themselves or to verify the information. I mean, I wouldn't.
So what you're saying, the question is, did we make follow-up contact with the county jail that is in question?
Correct. That is my question. Did you talk to anybody besides Trinity about these issues?
You can answer that.
No, we did not.
We will, and we can. That's no problem, Councilwoman.
We did have other references.
We have other references that speak to that, but we can. Yes, ma'am, we will, if that's what you want.
Well, I just think that if you're asking, you go to the source, for these kinds of for this kind of information, I'm a little concerned that I'm asking the bidder or I'm asking the person who's winning the contract to give us information like that. That doesn't seem logical to me. So anyway, now give me the third person. You said Trinity, Aramark, and who is the other person that contracted?
Summit,
The other person that bid?
Summit Food Service,
Oh, SUMMIT. Okay.
yes, and they are our current provider.
Oh, okay.
They were formerly known as Catering by Marlins, but they were acquired by another company.
Current vendor. Okay. Okay. I guess I'm concerned. Well, I absolutely want to make sure that the inmates have the good quality of food, but I don't want. But we also, I believe, Mr. Benasco, your interest was making sure that the staff, it was of quality, that your staff would stay in the building. I believe that was the conversation that we had early on. So we really want to make sure that we have good quality food for everybody that's there.
If I can speak to that, to make sure our majority focus is inmates, staff, vocational programs. So the quality of the food for the inmates is paramount, because if we don't have, and we've had some challenges in our recent situation, that's why for the first time ever, we drew in Valerie Nelson, because we've never in the history of this department had a medical representative at the table, because we were having some concerns on the nutrition of the meals. So I felt it was very important moving in this arena that we have someone for our medical staff as well. So just to recap, the goal was to make sure we had a balanced, good meal for the inmate population, the staff, and in this proposal to have vocational programming for culinary programs for the inmates as well.
Madam Chair, that's my question for right now. I'll let someone else have an opportunity to ask.
Madam Chair,
Councilman Fitch, go ahead.
thank you. Director, who determines the percentages, the weighing percentages? Who determines that? Who gets 15% or 10%? Who decides that?
I'm going to defer to the chair of the RFP, because they were part of the formula process. So, Sammy?
The committee, based on prior RFPs that the department, and based on our priorities, like for instance, we only wanted the cost of food to be 10%, because on a prior contract, we weighted the cost of food higher. So we want to focus more on quality, not just the lowest cost food.
Okay, and was there a percentage given to the weight of the history of that particular company submitting that proposal? Is there anywhere in your, and what did you call that particular category?
Yes, we weighted 15% on industry experience, references, including but not limited to BBB ratings and lawsuits.
Okay. And just a follow-up on Councilwoman Day's, I happen to agree with her about who's actually making the contacts to the references. This is no different than Metro by State. When they picked a new security guard company, they asked the security guard company, who was hit pretty hard in USA Today, of their opinion of the news piece, and they said it was all bogus and it wasn't accurate. So our concern then is the same concern that I have now, is have we actually reached out to Galveston County directly as opposed to going through Trinity? And I think I heard your answer was that we have not. Is that correct?
It wasn't Galveston.
It was not Galveston.
It was the one in Utah.
The one in Utah. Galveston sent us a written reference that gave Trinity a good score.
We will follow up on one particular one in question, sir.
Okay. All right. So who decides which of the agencies we go to for references?
You want to get 95? Or?
No.
On each proposal, gave us a list of current and former employers. I'm sorry, clients.
Right.
I contacted several of those, and we got a small Obviously, we don't get a full response rate, but we did get several back.
Were there any negative ones that we actually received back from Trinity?
No,
So everything that we asked for that came back to us were all positive for Trinity. Is that correct?
the ones we got back were positive, yes.
Okay. All right. That's all I have for now, Madam Chair.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair.
Councilman Harder.
Yes, for this question for the jail team there. What is our current contract with Summit? How much are we paying per year currently?
Well, I will start the answer and then I'll have Mr. Hemming. We are currently, our contract expired and we had to do an emergency extension because of the process didn't move forward as quick as we expected. So we are now in an extended contract to mid-August. It is costing us more because they did raise the cost per meal and didn't change any of the quality, just because we have to feed those inmates. Otherwise, we would have to start preparing our meals. So right now, we have a temporary contract made to when? August?
August 15th,
And we're paying $1, how much?
$1.36.
$1.36, which is more than what we were paying before, which is a cost factor for the next 3 months.
So the inflated cost per meal is $1.36?
Yeah, originally it was $1.20,
$1.28.
$1.28. They
Oh.
increased it.
We also get, that's the price, but we also get a credit off each meal to our equipment maintenance fund. So really, we can take 15 cents off of that price is what the net cost is.
Offense.
So all the inmates get 3 meals a day, correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And you say you have about 800 inmates currently.
Correct. But understand, it's just not the 800 population, Councilman. We have inmates who come into intake, and when they sit in booking for 24 hours, rating on processes, we have to provide them a bag lunch, and they charge me for that as well.
So does that good number to
Sometimes it might be more than 900 in a month period of time. Sometimes it's 12, 1300, because sometimes we can have about 30 or 40 inmates there in a day waiting for 24 hours, and we have to provide them a 3-meal bag lunch, bologna sandwich, and they charge me. Actually, those cost more than an actual meal because a bag lunch meat costs more.
because I was doing some quick figuring while we were talking, and at 800 inmates with 3 meals a day, figures to about $2.33 a meal under this proposed bid that we have in front of us. Is that about right?
Is the bid with the current provider we're attempting to come in contract with? Sir?
No, with Trinity. With Trinity.
Well, and I just want to make sure to clarify what Mr. Hemming said. We get 15% credit on the current and the prior rate. So really, there was an increase of almost 10 cents, just to make sure we're clear on how the service will be provided now. Just want to make sure that you don't discount the price off the current because it was already in the price from the beginning, if you understand me right. So the increase, when we calculated, it was approximately anywhere from 12,000 additional more over the next 3 months period. When you look at the average meals and the cost that it went up temporarily.
So what are you figuring your cost per meal will be under this 3-year contract?
Under the first year, it is $1.285 per inmate meal and $4 per staff meal. Now, each of those meals, we also get a 15-cent credit per meal.
And then it goes up from.
The contract has a maximum based on the consumer price index. I believe it's a 3% maximum increase.
Okay. And I assume the staff gets a better meal than the inmates for $4.
But they have a different type of meal because it'll be up in our staff dining. Right now, we only have not even 6 staff members a day who eat up there. I ate up there myself once or twice and became ill. So we really meals staff have to go out because the quality of food is not very conducive.
So do you think under the new contract you'll have staff that will eat there in the jail?
And I can have Nate talk to it briefly, but in the new contract, there's an by the provider to improve the dining area for staff on the 8th floor, and there will be no longer food sitting in the refrigerator to be warmed up. They will have staff who will prepare meals right there for all 3 shifts.
Trinity is proposing a $150,000 investment in our staff dining. Basically, they're going to redo the area.
The facilities or the food?
The infrastructure, the ovens, everything.
Okay. And when I toured the Justice Services facility years ago, at that time they had inmates that were working in the food service. Under this bid, do you still have inmates working in food service, or is it all outside vendors?
No, on this bid, just to clarify that, in our current situation, we have inmates who prepare all the inmate meals downstairs. We don't have any inmates. We hope we don't have any preparing the meal upstairs. In this new design, staff, their contract staff will prepare the staff meals upstairs. Right now, they're preparing them downstairs and bringing them up in coolers. And in this contract, the inmates will have a vocational program, and the contractor will compensate the inmates who work in staff dining. I mean, in the kitchen. Right now, the inmate workers, the way we get them to be incentivized to work in the kitchen, the Department of Justice Services has to offset some commissary items that comes out to give them the incentive to work there. Under this proposal, the contractor will bear that cost. It would not fall under our cost, which would save us some cost savings in our inmate security fund when the contractor will pay or give them incentives, whether it's commissary or items, for them to work in the kitchen.
How many inmates will work in the kitchen under this program?
We average anywhere from 70 to 80 inmates because they're a 24-hour pretty much operation. They got to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Okay. And finally, I guess you pay them, you said, in commissary items?
Yes. Yeah, we provide them like maybe every week, $5, $8 of commissary items credit to their account, but it comes out of our budget, which in this case, the contractor will be responsible. So it comes out of their profit margin and not our debt. And they're tying it into vocational program, which we don't have any vocational programs at all now. And it's important to get some of these individuals trained with self-serve certification so when they get out in the community, they can have work.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. And I would just caution the council that at this point, obviously the contract has not been authorized because the bill is still pending. And so details about the specific contract are not finalized. So that would be the next step after the council authorizes the contract. But at this point, most terms and conditions of the contract, the contract doesn't exist now, I guess is the best way to say it.
Okay, and as such, is that closed session content, Jen?
I would recommend that if you want to talk about specific terms and conditions of a potential contract, that that would be something that's better discussed in closed session. The terms and conditions of the proposal and the terms and conditions of a potential contract.
Okay, thank you.
Are discussed in closed session.
Thank you. Councilwoman Dunaway, I believe you had a question.
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. How long does it take for a Justice Services RFP to result in a fully executed contract? When someone's actually in Justice Services doing what you hired them to do?
It usually takes about 16 weeks.
Okay. How many service providers are currently providing service at Justice Services without being in a contract?
Well, we haven't had a phone contract. We've extended that. That went out on an RFP twice. And so since we never got the RFP completely through, we've extended that contract. I actually don't think we're currently under a contract. Haven't been for a few years.
I'm sorry, it's really, really hard to hear you guys that are farther away.
Just to say, all our contracts, that services we have are contracted. We had made a temporary arrangement with the phone contract because of COVID. So we are in a temporary arrangement with them at a much lower rate. So there wouldn't be hardship for the staff. But all the services we have contracts with.
Okay, except for you're on an extended contract now with food and with the phones. So I'm new here, right? Like I've only been here not even a year, and this seems to be an ongoing issue where we're paying higher fees because we've somehow not managed to get our RFP process out in time or get ourselves into a contract in time. And I'm just wondering, what are we doing to address that?
Well, I can speak to the food service. We sort of put everything out on a timely fashion, but we didn't anticipate what has hit America with COVID. So there has been some challenges there. Moving forward, when I talked to Councilwoman Clancy, I did say we're not going to do 16. We might just do 25 weeks just to give us a lot more buffer because we don't know what the unknowns are of society. I made that commitment.
Okay. I mean, I'm just suggesting that I hope this is a place where we're looking at improving our process. I'm really personally upset about the phone contract and the cost that has put on our inmates and their families. I understand that you solved that temporarily, but this has been an ongoing issue for a really long time. And now we're seeing another contract. Yeah, nobody saw COVID coming, but this looks like it's a habit.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but I would just remind the committee, you may want to be careful about going beyond the scope of the posted purpose of this meeting. And just advise that you stay within the scope of the meeting notice as it was posted.
Okay, point taken. Thanks, Jen.
Yep.
And I don't have any other questions.
I have yes,
Yeah,
I
go
do
ahead.
have another question. Most of the concerns that have come to my attention had nothing to do with the vocational area of Trinity. Do they do that at any of the other contracts that they had? Did they provide those kinds of vocational opportunities at other facilities?
Speak up, she didn't hear you.
Yes.
Which ones?
I don't know specifically. I can't remember off the top of my head specifically which ones, but they do offer vocational.
We can
It would
provide.
be helpful for me if you could get that information. We did not have challenges in that, but I would like to know the other facilities that had the vocational component to that. And as a probably my last concern is the fact that yes, we're having to extend a contract that we weren't going to do. It's costing us a little more money, but that tells me that someone did not do their due diligence on this. And so that means that we had to have constituents to come to us and bring to light some of the things that should have been told to us. Even if it's not a good thing, give it to us and let us make the decision to determine whether it rises to the level of concern. But to not give us that information, I think is part and parcel as to why you're here now, and we have to delay this process until we can get some good information on this particular company and make sure that we're comfortable in moving forward with this. So yes, would you be so kind as to get me the other facilities that Trinity has their vocational in, and then also look at the other facilities, jails or prisons, and get me some background on why the challenges or what the challenges were, and then also how did they address them, or did they just not renew the contract? So that would be helpful for me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have a question. Did the Justice Services Advisory Board have any role in this process?
Absolutely not, ma'am. No.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion from the council?
Well, Madam Chair, so we understand what we're looking for in terms of follow-up. Can they reiterate what they're going to get back to us with, please? Would that be helpful?
Yes, ma'am. So what we will do is follow up with the one particular jail for sure in Utah that had negative publicity. We will contact the commander. If I need to contact the sheriff myself and get you feedback on that as well. We will also contact the 2 Department of Corrections. I can talk to their central office and get feedback from their food service contract facility administrator as well. And we will also provide you feedback on all the jails that we heard back or corrections environment that Trinity is currently operating in, to not only verify that they are providing vocational programs, but the quality and their satisfaction in their services as well.
That's a good start. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we will move into public comments. I believe we have one comment. Madam Clerk, would you please read the comment?
Yes, ma'am. Our only public comment is from Tom Sullivan, 751 Syracuse, University City, Missouri. There are still questions about the proposed $2 million contract with Trinity Services Group, Inc. to provide food services and vocational programs for the county jail. There are even more questions about how Trinity was selected. Justice Services Director Raul Benasco has not been forthcoming in answering questions. Also, the Justice Services Advisory Board has not provided any input into the contract, and it has to wonder why. Mr. Benasco has refused to provide a list of board members and their emails. I have asked my council member Lisa Clancy to get the list for me, but she has not done so. In addition, there are questions about Mr. Benasco's relationship with Trinity and the firm that owns them. That needs to be looked into. It seems there are many things about the director's past that are not known in St. Louis County. Thank you for listening to my comments. Those are all the comments, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anything further from the council?
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
Is that Councilman Tracus?
Yes, it is. I'm sorry I couldn't participate by WebEx. I am been listening by phone. I do have just one question.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. This is to the director. I was just wondering if you could expand a little bit on the last public comment regarding your relationship with Trinity. How long has it gone on, and what is the nature of it?
So I can't answer that comment. As far as any of the other information that you requested from the RFP committee, we will furnish that, sir, but that's just someone's opinion, but I have no relationship, sir. And that's why throughout the whole entire RFP, I am removed from the process.
So I want to make sure I understand, and I just want to make, because I'm having a little trouble hearing, but you were removed from the process. You had nothing to do with the selection of Trinity as the vendor?
They make the recommendation, and based on their recommendation, that's what I move forward to the county council, sir.
Okay, and so the actual selection was done outside of your influence, and you had no input or in any way, shape, or form any influence on the decision regarding the selection of Trinity. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, sir. And you can ask the committee members that are here, the 4 members, as well.
Okay. All right, that's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you for the.
Thank you. Glad you were able to join us, Councilman Tracus.
I have a question.
Councilwoman Gray.
The advisory committee was mentioned just a few minutes ago. Is it true they were not informed as well, or included? I'm sorry, as well.
What was that, ma'am?
The Justice Advisory Committee, they were not included, or did you get any advice from them at all from that committee?
Ma'am, when we have our monthly meetings, we discuss some of their upcoming projects, whether it's a scanner or food service, but that they were shared. I mean, they're not part of the RFP, but they know we were looking for, the contracts were up, but that's all. That just came up maybe a few months ago. But no, ma'am, they were not. And in reference to the comment made by Mr. Sullivan, his requests have been made. I forward those to legal, but because they're not county employees, the question is they email becoming public record. Okay. That has been forwarded to legal, ma'am, twice.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I do have a follow-up.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman Fitch.
Director, I was having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. I think you said you removed yourself from the entire selection process. Why did you do that?
That's why we have the RFP process should be an RFP committee. I take recommendations from the committees.
Okay, so you would never be involved in any of these processes. Is that what I heard you say?
The first one, so since I've been here, no.
So of the 4 committee members that did make the recommendation to you, how many of those 4 members work for you?
Well, indirectly, Miss Valerie doesn't work for me. She works for the Department of Public Health, and the other 3 work as part of my team staff. Yes, sir. But different jurisdictions.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I just checked our boards and commission website. It looks like there is a full and up-to-date list of our Justice Services Advisory Board members on that website. So the public can see that, but I do understand there is not email addresses because it's considered a closed record is what I heard. Just a follow-up question on that, Mr. Manasco, when was the last time the Justice Service Advisory Board met?
Last month by Zoom, and we're meeting the 4th Friday of this month as well.
Okay, got it. Thank you. All right, anything further from the council? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.